Let's now look at the Secret Service admission. The head of the US Secret Service admitting today that the attempted assassination of Donald Trump was her agency's, well, she said, most significant operational failure in decades. Kimberly Cheadle testified before the House Oversight Committee today, but refused to offer critical details about the lead up to the shooting, saying that the investigation was still ongoing. Well, John Pistole is a former Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, and currently the president of Anderson University. He joins us now. Good evening to you, John.
Hi, Kim. Good evening. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much for lending us your expertise on this. What do you make of the admission then by Ms. Cheadle that the failure of the US Secret Service in the attempted assassination of Donald Trump was the agency's most significant operational failure in decades? That's huge, isn't it?
It certainly is. And when your job is a no-fail mission that is easily defined and identified, when something like that happens, when a putative assassin is able to get a shot, several shots off and wound the former president, then it is a failure, clearly. And it's a very unfortunate incident for everybody involved, especially the family of the firefighter who was killed and the others who were injured, along with just our whole political process here in the U.S.
Yeah, it is extraordinary. Look, we got limited detail from her today, didn't we? There was a question about why there was no security on the rooftop where Thomas Crooks, the shooter, opened fire, and she wouldn't say anything more than Secret Service agents prefer sterile rooftops. Let's just dig into this a little bit, because what we understand is that because that building had a sloping roof, there was a health and safety issue. Is that a fair enough thing to say, that they couldn't put operatives up on that roof because it was sloping?
No, I don't think, I think that's been misunderstood, and I don't know how well she has communicated the safety concerns, because obviously with Crooks being able to get up there and fire those rounds, it was obviously not a deterrent to him in order to do that. I think the bigger issue, rather than the slope of the roof, I'm not sure why she has focused on that, other than the fact that that was not the U.S. Secret Service's responsibility in terms of the protective rings of security, if you will, with obviously Secret Service having the inner ring there, the inner perimeter, and then with the state and local police collaborating in a way that, which is typical, that they would be on the outer perimeter, and so having layers of security, hopefully with no single point of failure. And obviously that's where the system broke down, and whether it was a failure to communicate among the Secret Service with the state and local police on a timely basis, it clearly seems to be part of the issue, or whether there are some more systemic issues. That's, as you've seen and talked about, I believe, they've appointed a commission, Secretary Mayorkas, who has appointed a commission involving the former Secretary of Homeland Security and several other subject matter experts to look into this, to discern what happened, why did it happen, and what could have been done differently to prevent this attempted assassination attempt from taking place.
So the building upon which Crooks stood was not part of the immediate responsibility of the Secret Service. It was supposed to be looked after by local law enforcement because it was a little further out from the stage area, but there was not communication, or it seems that there might not have been suitable relevant communication between both the Secret Service and local law enforcement. I mean, I was also reading reports here, John, about how the shooter had a viewfinder, and that he was identified walking around the event, within the perimeter of it, with a viewfinder, and no one really picking up or letting him get lost, but no one really being decisive or approaching him with a viewfinder, something used so that a shooter can accurately find their mark. It seems extraordinary, doesn't it? Or am I missing something?
Well, no, it is something that this independent review will clearly look at to assess why was that not more aggressively followed up on? Why wasn't the shooter confronted by somebody? And the question is, would that have been Secret Service or would it have been a state or local police officer who saw this and it was reported? So that's one of the key questions, I think. What steps could have been taken to disrupt this shooter from his acts, and having as you said, having the viewfinder and then climbing up on the roof and then being up there and there, people saw him and that was reported. So the question is, why was the action not taken prior to him getting the shots off? And I think those would be some of the key findings that this review will assess and report on.
Let me just tap into your expertise as a former deputy director of the FBI. You would have worked with the US Secret Service when you were in tenure. Was this an accident or an incident waiting to happen? What has been your experience with the US Secret Service?
Well, yeah, just to clarify, I spent almost 27 years at the FBI and then several other years at the Transportation Security Administration. So I've never worked for the U.S. Secret Service, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security. Prior to that, it's Department of Treasury. But no,
But you worked
the secret.
alongside them, presumably, or you have
Oh yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Work
yeah.
closely with them, friends with their former leadership and things that we collaborated on. Yeah, so they are consummate professionals in all respects. They have the Secret Service agents that everybody knows about, and then a uniform division that provides physical security around the White House and other places. And so I think it really comes down to is were they staffed properly? There's been some discussion about do they have adequate staffing there? And then what were the communications protocols with the state and locals that I've mentioned, and what worked and what did not work, and why did it not work? So there could have been the disruption that's what they are there for, going back to, following President Lincoln's assassination and other presidential assassinations. So that is their job. That's a reason for existence in terms of the protective detail. And so they have done an outstanding job over the years and decades, as Director Cheadle mentioned today. But it is a monumental failure to allow what happened again, but for the grace of God or just luck, that the former president wasn't killed.
Look, thank you so much for being with us. Love to tap into your expertise again sometime in the future, perhaps when we have a little bit more detail into this investigation. So little that the head of the US Secret Service could really say today. As she said, because of that investigation, she's been criticised for that as well, for not for sort of using that as a bit of a blocker. But we'd love to speak to you again soon. John Pistole, thank you, former Deputy Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, currently the President of Anderson University. Cheers.
Thank you, Kate.